Okay, everybody, welcome once again to the Meat and Potato Show, conservative talk and awesome rock. I am your host, Christopher Mader, and calling in from Boston. I can't wait to talk to this wonderful person. I'm going to give you a brief bio on her, and Boston resident, principal at the Urban Data Group, a data analytics firm serving the needs of innovative organizations. I like the way that sounds. She publishes Massachusetts Matters and is host of Patriot Games and the Daily Hash, which is syndicated on the Red State Talk Radio Network. And her tagline is Ghetto Economics. And according to what I'm reading in her email, she will be publishing this interview on her next radio show and on her site, as well as I will also. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Meat and Potato Show, Stephanie Davis. Stephanie, thank you for calling into the show. How are you today?
Well, thank you for having me, Christopher. I'm fine. We're in between polar vortexes. Apparently, we here in the east have another storm bearing down on us.
Yes, because the planet is warming up, you know. You know that, right, Stephanie?
No, it has a fever.
That's right. And you know, by 2013, the polar ice caps will be melting. I mean, you know this, right, Stephanie?
I can see it lapping at my doorstep.
Exactly. I mean, you're in Boston, so, you know, you're right there next to the shore. You got to put on your hip waders when you go out to go get your morning coffee at Dunkin' Donuts. I know. It's crazy.
I have to put on hip waders, but it's for other reasons. There's a lot of something else sloshing around there.
Excellent. Stephanie, let's get right into it. And Stephanie, I'm going to pull the race card here. I got to pull the race card. I love what you sent me about Spike Lee. Apparently Spike Lee has a problem with white people moving into a black neighborhood. Isn't that amazing? I'm going to read some, this was in Time magazine, I'm going to read some stuff here. What's really bothering Lee is that he doesn't like seeing his old neighborhood full of white people, which makes him historical detritus. I like the way he writes that. Basically, black people are getting paid more money than they've ever seen in their lives, and they're selling off their houses into a once sketchy neighborhood is now quiet and pleasant. And apparently this seems to be a bad thing according to Spike Lee. And it's in a post that you send me, and Spike Lee goes on to say, respect the culture when you move in, Lee growls. But again, he isn't making sense. We can be quite sure that if whites respected the culture by trying to participate in it, Lee would be one of the first to line up and call it appropriation. Stephanie, what is fomenting this crap? I mean, come on. It's the 21st century. What is fomenting this crap? Who is fomenting this crap? And why is this so important to the Democrats? Go ahead, Stephanie.
Well, I'll leave his name out of it, sent me that article. I don't follow Spike Lee. I have about 3.5 million other things to be doing more important. But somebody sent it to me, so I just thought it was interesting insofar as Spike Lee is another member of the self-hating Americans who have done very well by the America that they purport to hate. He's
the Michael Moores
made a lot of money, and apparently he's just bored. He sounds like he's bored. It sounds like a very colicky old man. Is what he sounds like. You know, I wonder if he's getting his fiber.
Stephanie, but it is. Well, I've been doing I did a piece on voter fraud in my blog, the Lexington Green, and one of the things I pointed out is, even though some people can say, well, the Republicans do voter fraud, I did a ton of research. And all the books I've read, the material I looked for, yes, here and there, a mayoral race here or a congressional state senate race or something going on, okay, maybe a Republican did this, that, the other thing. But by and large, Democrats, it's a national trend. They're actually pushing for this. Now, this brings me back into the race thing. Okay, there are probably some Republicans, some old Southern white people that still have some animus somewhere. I mean, but this race thing, it's a national trend, and it's being pushed by the liberal Democrats. Look at what Rangel said the other day. I forget where he was on. He was on some news network. But again, they keep hashing that word, these racist Tea Party people. I mean, what is fomenting this, Stephanie? Go on with that.
Well, I think it's a takeoff. Who said when you have the law on your side, you argue the law, and when you have nothing on your side, you pound the table and change the subject. So, I mean, if things go according to plan, come November, the Democrats are going to get their heads handed to them again. So it's a desperation strategy. You know, the Tea Party became racist once it became an effective organization capable of defeating Democrats.
Certainly.
So
certainly.
It's a tactic. It's a tactic. This is about all they've got left. And God forbid that they would ever lose hold on black votes. Then there'd be no more Democrat, and I suppose labor unions and certain female subsets. There'd be no more Democrat Party. So, from my standpoint, the Democrat Party has been, and liberalism, which is the two of which apparently joined at the hip, have
Right.
become
Right.
intellectually and morally bankrupt. So, I give it a little credence as possible, other than I recognize it as a tactic of a desperate political animal. Nothing more.
Exactly. But they seem to have a hold on the power. They seem to have a hold on the mass psyche of the people. This thing.
Well, they don't act like it.
Yeah, interesting. But go ahead.
If that be the case, then why are we apparently, and things can change, why are they heading for an electoral drubbing?
Do you see that? Do you really think so? Do you think that's going to happen? I'm looking at the 2014 race as very heated. I actually support what you're saying. I think we're going to gain more seats. You're going to see a slow turn like we did in 2010. More Tea Party candidates, more conservative candidates, more Republicans, although some of them might be rhinos. At least we're getting there. But you're calling for. You think these people are going to get handed their hat? What makes you think that?
Well, I'm just looking at the way that the Senate, the playing field is not level, and the Democrats are playing defense. And again, I shouldn't even say this because it's 8 months out. But if things stay the way they are and nobody does anything stupid, then they're going to lose the Senate.
Well, Harry.
And hold the House. So that means goodbye, Harry Reid.
Yeah.
And so to me, that's a defeat. That's not what. And of course, the driving force is Obamacare, and that's not what they had in mind when they shoved that down the public's throats.
But again, even still, getting back to what I said just a minute ago, it seems like the Democrats and the liberals, of course, they control most of the mainstream media. Helen DeGeneres just the other day. No, I think many people are very pleased with the fact that you've got Obamacare, and he goes, and of course Obama goes on, and he keeps telling that same lie. Well, you're gonna get a health plan cheaper than your cell phone bill. Hello, just go on to the ACA.gov or whatever the hell the website is, and just go on there and look at a bronze plan, the most cheapest, bare bones bronze plan. I mean, that thing is like almost $1,000 a month. Where the hell does he get off? And he keeps saying this. I mean, what the hell?
They speak to each other.
Right.
What we must remember is that when these people appear in public on these Meet the Press and the other shows, they're not speaking to you and me. People in Washington, and this is a problem, they're not speaking to us because they don't live the way we live, and they don't associate with us.
I just spoke to presidential candidate John DeMay. He did an interview with me about an hour or so ago, and he and I came to that same conclusion. Okay, yes, they might have children. Yes, they work day to day like you and I, but it's a different elite class. They have nannies and housekeepers. Their income level is quite above yours and mine or the guy next door, and it's like this insulated mentality that exists. I got my cat. It's like this insulated mentality that exists in Washington, D.C.
And you can see that manifested in the listing of the most affluent counties in the country. And I believe 4 of the top 10 are ringed around Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And you see that Virginia, because of its reliance on government largesse, has now is becoming purple, if not outright blue. So it's a very dangerous situation because literally these people have nothing in common with that. There's 535 people and there's 300 million of us, and there's apparently no connection, or less and less of a connection. There's no common thread in terms of the military. It used to be that we had a draft, which I favor, by the way, and that was a common denominator.
Hey, Israel still has it. You got to serve 2 years right after high school. I mean, sure, I'm in favor of that too. Sure.
Plus, I realize we're in the minority because even the military itself, we are told, does not want to have a draft. But something has. Well, anyway, I don't want to get off on that tangent. But the bottom line is, when you say where does President Obama or Ellen DeGeneres get off making those remarks? And that's because they're speaking to each other and not to people who actually have to pay bills and get their hands dirty for a living. We've got to. It's an us, them, 2 Americas. There are 2 Americas, but it's not the 2 Americas that John Edwards and who else tried? Al Gore? Did he try that? No, I guess it was John Edwards. There are 2 Americas, but it's not what they would have you believe. And it's dangerous, in my opinion, uncorrected.
Now, as a Black American yourself, of course, historically, I mean, I welcomed it. I thought it was the most amazing thing. Of course, we've been, handed a bill of goods. And I want to know from yourself, just not your professional, just your personal, just what you think. Now that we see what's going on, we're 6 years into it, and we see all of this. In fact, many people in the Black community they're waking up. Even the people who were even people have said it's like, I voted for him simply because he's black. I'm black, so I voted for him because he's black. Now they're seeing it 6 years in. What is this going to do in the future when another black candidate comes along, male, female, it doesn't matter? What's this going to do? Is there going to be some animus there? Is there going to be some, remember the last time we elected? Do you see where I'm going here, Stephanie?
I think A, he's biracial. B, he's a liberal. You see, the common denominator of all this, and I try to tell people this, is liberalism.
Right.
I mean, he's also left-handed and he's a senator. I would think if anything, this is a reason not to send senators to a legislator to do an executive position. So I think if Alan West ran for president, and I'm not particularly interested in having him do that, would you have reticence, comparatively speaking?
I see what you're saying. No, I don't see that. Condoleezza Rice, I don't see it. I don't see that either. Yeah, you're right.
And I'm not touting any of them because we don't know. None of these people. Actually, I just as soon not have any of them. I'm really at the point now where I just as soon invoke the William F. Buckley Jr. rule. Do you know what that is?
Please explain.
He would rather be governed by the first 500 names out of the Boston phone book than by the faculty of Harvard, which is essentially what we have.
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, they couldn't do a worse job. They really
I don't
couldn't.
think you could. So if we're going to have bad government, let's just get some local people in there.
No, you're right, though, Stephanie.
It's not funny.
I know. I mean, you have to laugh to keep from ripping your face off.
You do.
And screaming.
You do.
Screaming.
No, but I think really, I think that the issue here, if people would face up to it, is that liberalism is not consonant with the American ideal. It just doesn't work. Deal, as the founders, as I see it, and as the founders postulated.
Right, and intended.
It's antithetical. So to me, when you get these liberals in here and you see their records, run.
Exactly. And here's the other thing too is, you know, I've gone through the database. I've gone through the list of a who's who in the Obama administration, and just not the actual administration, but who has risen to that elite status of where they are in the higher echelons of government. I mean, these people are, you're right, they're the Harvard, Yale, they're the theoreticals. Oh, I took political science. Well, did you serve in the military? Did you, well, I protested. Every one of them has the same resume. They were all part of leftist causes, all part of that elitist educational crowd where they have political theories, and we studied Marxism, and we studied internationalism, and we studied child psychology, yet none of them have any actual real experience actually in the real world. Well, except Obama, who was an actual community organizer. But then again, we have to question, well, what the hell did you do? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Yeah, he's, and, you know, I joked the other day in a piece on Facebook, I was corrected somewhat, that Barack Obama is the answer to the question, what would an Adlai Stevenson presidency have been like? Just kind of, they've always longed for they long for an egghead, an intellectual. I think President Obama is a pseudo-intellectual. I'm not certain of how deep his knowledge is, but the left longs for these technocratic Ivy League intellectuals to basically govern the rest of us. Us rabble. Because they don't believe we're capable of governing ourselves. So,
certainly.
And do you know who the last non-Ivy League president of the United States was?
I have no idea. Go ahead.
Well, think about it.
I'm going to say, I want to say Ronald Reagan. I don't think
Ding, 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 ding. Correct.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Yeah, he was just a governor. He was a Hollywood actor. You know, his earlier days, he was a lifeguard. He just worked his way up through college. And I think he went to college.
He grew up in poverty. I mean,
he was poor, right?
Near to poverty. He actually had to go out and earn a living, or he wouldn't have eaten it. And I think he may be the last president who was that close to privation, for want of a better word.
And we can argue all day long, Stephanie, you and I, about the mistakes that even Ronald Reagan made, but you make an incredible point, because I've read the Reagan diaries, I've read other biographies on Reagan, and as I said to John Dumais, who's running for president, in my earlier interview, and as I've said to many of my other guests, one of the great things I love about what I do for my show, and you probably do it too, because you have to know what you're talking about when you go on the microphone. Is
I don't
that
know anything.
is that you know, you read a lot about people, and you have to do a lot of research. And somebody like Ronald Reagan was a guy who he was a streetwise guy, and he made his way through Hollywood by his own sweat. Made his way through life, got divorced. Hello, oh my God, sin of all sins. But you know, so when he he tried. I think if I remember, I was a young kid at the time. I think he tried like 3 or 4 times. He threw his hat in a ring to run for president after, you know, his governorship in California. At least 2 or 3 times. I was trying to think, Nixon, Ford, and then Carter. Yeah, he at least a couple of times, and until he finally made it. So this was a guy who knew about defeat and loss, and just get back up, go on. You know, you got to go back to work the next day, and you got to plan it again for the next time. Yeah, these elitists, it's weird. Everything's already planned for them. They already know. These guys, all of these guys, even Harry Reid, let's say he loses in his next election, which I certainly hope he does. He's got a cushy job. He's going to be some consultant. He's going to get money from his illegal land deals in Nevada. I mean, these people are taken care of, aren't they?
Well, sure. they go to Washington to do good ostensibly, and then they wind up doing well for themselves.
Sure.
But yeah, Ronald Reagan. As a matter of fact, I have a friend who has written a biography of President Reagan entitled Reagan's Journey, and she specializes in delivering lectures on leadership. Long story short, and she actually worked on President Reagan's first transition team. But the point of it is that in her research, she found out that he initially resisted entry into politics. He was not naturally drawn to it, and his friends have prevailed upon him. But he had no. It wasn't something that he lusted after from the get-go. He had to be dragged into it.
That's an interesting point. There was a Cornell University study done a little while ago, and I uncovered this in the many bowels of the internet, it was a 6-year study, just published late last year in 2013, that 1 in 10 people who go into government, law enforcement, judgeships, district attorneys, any position of power, that 1 in 10 of them, that they found out, this Cornell University study, are clinically psychotic. They're clinically insane. And that whole desire to get into office, it takes an A+ type of personality to begin with, but that was part of the study, is that, yeah, with these A+ personalities, out of 1 in 10 of those people, they're a little A++, if you they got an extra chromosome, if you know what I'm getting at. And so these people are clinically psychotic. And I'm sorry, and I don't have proof, but I'm going to say it because this is my show. You know, you look at Harry Reid. I watched his speech about what he said about the Koch brothers. Now, maybe he might be factually correct on that, but you got to look at the eyes. You got to look at this guy. This guy is clinically insane, isn't he?
Well, I don't know which part of it you think he may have been, in which he may have been accurate, but again, it's changed the subject. I look at this as these are the last gaps of a group of people who are afraid of what's around the corner, and they're trying to gin up the base any way they can. Mm-hmm. And apparently, the Koch brothers are the boogeyman that they use to raise money and change the subject. But I know people, I'm sure you do too, who have had their lives torn asunder by this garbage fire that is called Obamacare. So I don't know where Senator Reid is coming from, but I think it's more partisan than anything else.
Certainly. Now, you belong to some Tea Party groups. You're a conservative American, and you do your radio show. Getting back to the race thing, what do you think about this? And we're probably going to rehash what we just talked about. This concept that the Tea Party is racist, and you hear Chuck Schumer saying we're going to destroy the Tea Party. Even Karl Rove, a Republican, I mean, his whole game plan is to destroy Tea Party candidates and to elect, mainstream Republicans. In their mind, they think, well, we've got to be more mainstream. That way we can win elections. How do you respond to that?
The mainstream, I tend to focus. I like to focus my fire on what I consider to be the overarching enemy, and that's or challenge, and that's liberalism. And I don't think it serves any purpose for us to be fighting amongst each other, given what we have to the big picture. So I'm not in favor of this infighting anyway. I don't like it. I don't think it's a house divided can't stand.
Certainly, actually.
And it doesn't serve. And we have it here in Massachusetts. We just had I didn't attend, but this Republican state convention.
Yeah. I'm a delegate too. I wasn't able to go, right.
Well, and that there's some controversy there. So my point is that I guess you need somebody to herd the cats and whip them in the line and get the message straight, and without a titular head of the party, which maybe Mitt Romney has now become. Becomes easy for people to go off into their own agendas. But it'd be nice if they put the needs of the country ahead of themselves. But we've already had that conversation. So
Certainly. Let's talk about Massachusetts politics. Another thing you sent me about crony capitalism and the Massachusetts marijuana racket. It turns out, and I did not know this, and thank you for sending this to me, that former Norfolk County District Attorney, I think his name is Joseph, his last name is Delahunt. I think it's Joe Delahunt. William, thank you. William Delahunt. It's Delahunt. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
But he used to be a DA. He spent many years putting marijuana smokers and marijuana possessors in jail, yet now he has 3 dispensary licenses for medical marijuana. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, can you, Stephanie? I mean, really. Come on. Go on from there.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg. If you go to today's Boston Globe, he is just raking it in every possible way he can with regards to leveraging his political connections to make money. So he's, in essence, he's become a 1%er, and he represents apparently the city of Quincy. He's raked in about he's a lobbyist.
Sure.
That's what he is now. I don't know if I said that, but he's raked in $500,000 with the Wampanoag Indians to obtain a casino license.
Yeah.
See, once you could branch off on so many different tangents when you speak to one thing, but why is there a Bureau of Indian Affairs? Where are they getting all this money? And why do they get special privileges on these casino licenses?
Exactly. In fact, we are so far beyond the Indian Wars and that whole reservation thing. And I'm not calling for taking the reservations away, but I mean, well, government.
Well, why do we have them?
Well, Stephanie, that's a rhetorical question. I mean, government. I mean, why get rid of an agency? It's like lead paint. Once we got rid of all of the lead paint and remediated all the houses here in New England of lead paint, instead of saying, okay, that was a good program, we're done, we're finished, it worked out, all right, let's do away with this. No, they went ahead in the Senate, in the state Senate, to let's lower the standard. So instead of X parts per million, now it's Y parts per million of lead paint. So now it's like, oh, let's hand them another several $1 million, and let's keep this thing going all over again. And the reason why I brought that up is because I have a friend who works in the paint industry, and he brought that up to me. And so it's crazy. So the point of my argument is it's like, what, get rid of a government program? What do you want, glue? It's like, what the hell's the matter with you?
No, but it's that William Delahunt. It's maddening the way that those licenses. And there are lawsuits against the entire process because it's tainted by incompetency. Apparently, the regulatory officials acknowledge not having fully read the applications, and that many of the applications submitted contain material misinformation. And apparently, as a result of this uproar with Delahunt, he's resigned from. He's no longer part of the board. But it's so offensive. It's so corrupting. How can one person who just happens to have been in Congress and has broad political connections wind up with 3 licenses to dispense marijuana, which I don't know why it costs millions of dollars to dispense marijuana. I don't use it, but it seems to me that it's a fairly low overhead process.
Stephanie,
only the government could turn it into a major barrier to entry. So I don't support the stuff. I don't use it. I don't like it.
No, that's fine.
But I'd rather have it. As opposed to having the government regulated, I'd rather have the professional thieves.
Well, Stephanie, listen, I can go right up the street and get all the so-called medical marijuana I want, and that guy, trust me, that guy does not have a license. I think you know what I'm getting at. But
it's low overhead,
It's
so
low overhead.
Why now do we have to have licenses and millions of dollars of fees and a bureaucracy.
Because that's the control. You know that, Stephanie. That's the control.
I know, but I was just so outraged by that.
Well, apparently DeLeo is upset about all this, but he's not upset the way that you might think. Because here's the quote: "I'm hearing now that a lot of the information on the application was not verified, and that, quite frankly, is what I have a major problem with." So DeLeo isn't upset that Delahunt has suddenly 3 licenses and isn't part of this multi-million-dollar scam. No, he's just upset because the application wasn't filled out right. I mean, again, you can't make this stuff up. This is Massachusetts politics.
No, I don't know. Yeah, well, he's on the front page of the Globe, and all his he's just using his connections to line his own pockets, which I suppose is fine. You know, a friend of mine, I coined this term ghetto economics. You'll know why shortly.
That was my next question. I want you to talk about that. Talk about that.
Well, the long and short of it is ghetto economics is the public policy equivalent of barefoot and pregnant. So it's embodied by things like hiking a minimum wage, which disenfranchises low-skilled workers who try to obtain entry-level job placement. It's embodied by opposition to Walmart's. It's codified, which is basically just depriving people of the opportunity to purchase the most economical goods at the best prices and perhaps have some jobs and eliminate these food deserts that they're always talking about. It's embodied by opposition to charter schools. You've got de Blasio, the mayor of New York, practicing ghetto economics. We have that here in Massachusetts with the refusal to lift the cap on charter schools, of which there shouldn't be any, in my opinion.
Sure.
It's embodied by things like in the city of Boston imposing a limit on the number of taxi cab licenses that can be issued, which raises the value of those on the market in the approaching, it's not exceeding $500,000. It's embodied. Those are the types of issues. It's in California. It's embodied by the decision of the elites to cut off water supplies to farmers in the central part of the state, which is
the San Joaquin Valley,
right? The breadbasket of the country.
Yeah, the San Joaquin Valley. That's right. That's right. And
so it's anti-liberty, it's anti-freedom, it's anti-progress, it's anti-upward mobility, it's anti-human, it's cruel, and it's practiced by people primarily who purport to want to help the oppressed and the people at the bottom. And my friend told me when I was ranting about this, he said, "You don't understand. It's not about helping poor people. They don't care."
Yeah.
And that's what it is. They don't care.
Where does this come from? Where does this mentality come from? I mean, is it primarily from that Alinskyism, that elitism, that Marxism that they were all taught in the 60s and 70s in college, that kind of thing? Or is this deeper? I mean, let's go back to the Cornell University study that I just talked about. I'm looking for a deeper why. Do you understand what I'm trying to say here?
Yeah, I don't know. I go back and forth trying to figure this out. I don't know if it's some of it is if you follow the money, you'll see that they have vested interests in keeping their money flowing into their campaign coffers and remaining in office.
Mm-hmm.
And some of it has to do with ignorance. Some of them are truly ignorant. And some of it has to, if you look at it from their perspective, they pay no price for what they do. So there's no reason to stop it.
So this is pure greed, and it's...
So maybe they think, well, maybe if they keep voting for them, they must like it.
Yeah, but even they themselves know that, okay, I got voted into office, but even they themselves know that they got voted in by PAC money, business money, special interest money.
But that's what they were trying to do. So it worked.
You know, I've been asking that question. I use the term, I'm looking for a deeper why. I've asked, you're like the fourth person in all of my interviews, I think the past like month. And I've heard several different answers, but, and no denigration to you and no denigration to any of my other guests. I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing that deeper why. There's something deeper, which, again, brings me back to that there's got to be something psychological.
Okay, well, how about it's a mental disorder? Because Michael
Yeah.
Savage.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's, and the funny thing, and again, no denigration to you, and again, not to my other guests, who also couldn't come up, because they kept coming up with the same answers that you came up with, and I completely agree. All of you are factually completely correct. You know, it's like you get to the top of the mountain, and you look beyond the mountain, and you're like, I want to go there, and somebody's saying, no, you can't, no, this is it, but wait, I can see that there's something there, but you can't put your finger on it, and it just seems like, I think you're right. There's something.
I don't think there's any one answer. I mean, we're looking for one answer. I don't think there's a single answer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Milton Friedman would say, and I think we need to forget the why and focus on the results. He would say it doesn't matter what the intention is. It's all that matters is results, and the results are atrocious. So I just think we need to focus less on the why and more on the what and the outcomes and the results, and try to hold these people accountable.
Sure, we can figure out the why later once we have them all in jail. I want you talk to me about the Urban Data Group. Talk to us about that. What is that?
Oh, it's very secret. It's a very personal.
Yeah, secret handshake, kind of like an eyes wide shut type scenario there.
Well, no, we're trying to find out using big data, how do we message more effectively to optimize or bring about a certain set of results. I'll leave it there.
Interesting.
How do we identify, motivate, and persuade people to behave differently at the ballot box?
Now
How about that?
Excellent. You publish Massachusetts Matters. Is that a blog? What is that?
It's my feeble little attempt at a magazine that focuses on state and local developments. Because that's where we focus on Washington, D.C. too much, I believe, all of us, and we do so at our peril, because much of the mayhem happens at the local level. It happens in school committee meetings.
It does.
It happens in assessor meetings. It happens in these, well, here in Massachusetts, we've got these conservation groups. There's a lot of things that go on at the state and local, particularly at the local level, that nobody really notices until it's too late.
Send me a link. Send me a link. Is it online or is it an actual hardcover magazine that you're talking about?
No, it's online.
Yeah.
Massachusettsmatters.com.
Sounds good.
And I will be republishing this article there, because I can add audio podcasts as well. So I'll be
Excellent.
I'll be uploading this article as well. But it's and we try to break news. If there's news going on, we try to break it. People love breaking news. What's going on at the grassroots?
Certainly. No, I can completely, and everywhere, I'm everywhere with my show. Of course, I can't be, quote unquote, everywhere, but I'm
You're
all
over the country. You're flying around. You're Mr. Ubiquitous.
I am. Yeah. Thank you.
The hardest working man in podcasting.
Exactly. The Meat and Potato Show. Listen, John Nowicki from the Worcester Tea Party, back in 2012, when I spoke at the April 15th rally there at Lincoln Square here in Worcester, Mass. I was the MC. I was introducing the guests, and what I would do is I would talk a little. I broke up my speech into little 1-minute, 2-minute segments in between introducing the other people. And when everything was done and we're packing up, John walked up to me and he said, "Thank you, that was great. Everything you did was great." And he said to me, he said, "Christopher, the best thing that ever happened to you was getting fired from that radio station, the radio station that I used to work at, I was fired like a week before the actual April 15th event." And it went all over the web everywhere, but that's an argument for a story for another day. But what has ended up happening, and the reason why I'm talking about this, again, thank you for saying that, is, the Meat and Potato Show, I just did this myself. I said, you know what, screw it. The web is wide open. Citizen journalism is wide open. Everything is wide open. The world is quite literally my oyster, and I've just gone and run with it. And so thank you very much for that. I just told you, John DeMay, guy's calling in from California. People from California are listening to my show. It's like, are you serious? It's like, really?
Well, people around the world are listening. Check your site visit logs. You have it. The world is our oyster.
Yeah, it really.
Because of the web, as you say, it's scalable and it's international. It's global.
Sure. And now this brings me to your show, Patriot Games and the Daily Hash. How long have you been doing that? Talk to us about your experience. Because this is the other thing, I want to get more people like you who also do online radio, if not actual radio, get them to come onto my show, get me to come onto other people's show, and keep sharing, keep cross-sharing, and you share your sites with me, I share my sites with you, and like you just said, you're gonna put this stuff, once I'm done editing this video and putting it all up, I'll send you a copy, boom, you know what to do, just copy and paste, and boom, out there it goes, and I do the same thing. So I want to get more people from other internet shows onto my show and vice versa. So tell us about your show, tell us about the history, and how are you doing on that?
Well, I do feel that this is very important what we're doing because we need to get around the dominant media culture and we need to completely change the culture. So we don't have cultural touch points. We've lost the culture war. The center-right has lost the culture war. The people now, apparently, they're watching shows like, Jon Stewart, and what's the other one?
Colbert, the Colbert Report.
And that's where, apparently, a large number of people are garnering their information. Well, if that's the way it's going to be, then we need to be in there pitching our stuff, too. So it's very important to create new centers of information and alternatives to what is passing for a culture. For instance, think about this. A president of the United States is now sitting down and cavorting with an alleged actor on some program that I've never heard of, pitching major public policy.
I think you're talking about Between the Ferns with Galifianakis.
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen that. I was able to stomach. I've seen Galifianakis in his movies, and of course the Hangover series movies. I don't know if you've ever seen them. Funny ass movies. Oh my God, they're hysterically funny. But as far as I'm concerned, I wish actors would just stick to acting and just shut the hell up. That kind of thing.
But the fact that he does it tells you that they know I'll take my hat off to them. They can't govern worth a lick, but they know how to campaign, they know how to message, and they know how to reach. They know who their target audience is. So what does that think about what that tells you about the intellectual underpinnings of the country at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
He apparently, I don't know if you're aware of this, he had an encounter with Justin Bieber. Now I ask you, why on earth is the President of the United States having an encounter with Justin Bieber?
Oh, I see where you're going. Yeah, you're right.
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, it's
nothing going on there.
Yeah, it's like pop culture, pop psychology, pop culture, the flavor of the moment. Not the flavor of the week or the flavor of the month, it's the flavor of the moment. It's really
I'm
bizarre.
trying to, and you are too, is trying to leaven the culture with something that is entertaining, because we do have to be entertaining, but that is informative and inspires people to take some kind of an action. That's what I try to do. I've been doing it, for maybe 5, 6 years, off and on.
Yep, me since 2008. That's right. Yeah, exactly. And I fell into it. I mean, I quite literally was at a convenience store at about 11:30 at night, right down the street from where I live, and I couldn't sleep, so I was like, I'm just going to go down, talk to the guy down there, grab a newspaper, and I ran into an old buddy of mine who did a radio show at WCUW here in Worcester, Massachusetts. And I was like, oh, hey, I won't tell his name, but I was like, hey, you still? He's like, yeah, I am. I was like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. I was like, you know what, that was cool. I remember we played there as a rock band. He's like, yeah, I remember that, blah, 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 on and on. I was like, I said, I'd like to come down and, maybe sit in. And he's like, yeah, sure, come on down. Next thing I know, he's actually, and I thought it would just, it's just harmless conversation. It would just go away. Next thing I know, he's like calling me on the phone. He's like, you want to go? And it was just off and running from there. It really was. It really was. And I never looked back. And like I said, I ended up getting fired, and other things happened, and now the Meat and Potatoes YouTube and the whole Facebook and the M&P Conservative Network got started, and this whole thing is just growing. And I'm just gonna ride it, man. I'm gonna work it and ride it, and that's what you're doing. And this brings me to a point: is that getting back to Karl Rove and Schumer saying, "Oh, we're gonna shut down the Tea Party." One of the things that these guys don't understand is that people like you and I and the thousands, if not millions of others across America, we are that grassroots movement. We are on the web. It's like, what are you going to come knock on my door and seize all my sound equipment? It's like,
well, don't give them any ideas. That might be closer than you think.
All right, Stephanie, thank you very much. Goodbye. Yeah, really. I know, really.
Careful.
I know. But that's what's happening. I was talking to John Dumais, and I was talking to Colonel Reed Reeser. He ran for Senate against Cornyn out in Texas, and yeah, everything's about control. Everything's got to be controlled, and they really, really are. They're trying to squeeze harder and harder and harder, but they're forgetting that old adage. I mean, the more you squeeze, the more it slips through their fingers. It's bizarre, isn't it?
It's a state of mind. The Tea Party was created because of political irresponsibility. And, I maintain that the Tea Party was born in the presidential candidacy of Ross Perot.
I think so.
That was its first.
Yeah.
Guess.
I've seen some old stories. Yep. Go on. I think if you look at it historically, I would say that was the opening round of the Tea Party, or the Tea Party was born in that movement. And in a tiny little way, that was the conception. And he garnered, crazy as he he garnered about, 20% of the vote and helped to elect President Clinton? Yeah, he tilted the election enough, right. That's what was so bizarre. I mean, we can argue the legitimacy of that and why he did that and the tactics behind it, but you're right, looking at the raw numbers, I mean, he got more than, think about what the hell is that guy, Nader? Think about some of these other Green Party people, even libertarians. Oh, I'm in the Libertarian Party. I mean, you get like 2 or 3% of the vote or 5%. Yet you're right, Ross Perot, he took a chunk. You're right. That's interesting. I'm gonna have to go back and look at some of those reports because
and he focused on, the voodoo stick and the PowerPoint and the deficits. He was talking about the public fisc and what's happening to our country that way. That was his primary, or at least that's what I recall. That was his primary talking point. It was the voodoo stick, or the
voodoo economics.
Deficit. No, he was talking about the deficit. That was his, to me, don't you think that was his war cry? That was his calling card.
It really was. As a businessman, he understood. It's like you can't keep going. And back then, it wasn't as hot. I just finished reading, amongst the dozens of other books that I've been reading this past month. I just finished Newt Gingrich's old book from 1995, Renew America, and he talked about the deficits back in 1995, and he talked about how since Johnson, something like $4.9 trillion has been spent on poverty, and yet here we are. There's still poverty.
Would you think it would be more than that?
Well, that was 1995, and now some people have said to me, it's like, well, you're using 1995 numbers. It's like, dude, you think it's gotten any better? Seriously? No. Of course it's not. It's probably twice that now. And yet here we are still with poverty. And Ross Perot, you're right, Ross Perot was talking about this back then. And I remember that famous line he had. It's like, you know what? You got to open the hood and see what's wrong under the engine. You really do. And you remember that? I remember that speech in the debate. It's like you gotta open up the hood. You gotta look at the engine, see what's wrong with the engine, and fix the engine, and then you can get the car back on the road.
I call Ross the little man with the big ears.
He was unbelievable.
But that was really, he focused on that issue like a laser beam, and I think he struck a nerve because it's worrisome to a number of people. And that's at its essence is what the Tea Party is about, and the belief that if we can adhere to the Constitution as set forth by the founders, which is, I know it's open to interpretation, but not like this, things might be better.
Yes.
That's, to me, I've had that thought. I had that thought before the Tea Party formed, and then along came the Tea Party. Plus, I like being on the outside. I like being part of the out crowd. You know, it's more fun to be on the outs than the ins.
Have you always been a conservative? I mean,
Yes.
Yeah, really. What about your parents? Did you? My parents were Kennedy liberals. I mean, it has taken me something like 20 plus years, and people call me a neocon, and it's like, look, dude, it's been 20 plus years. I mean, my first tip, the first time that my thought process tipped was when Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, and everyone was screaming about, it's a war for oil. Oh, stop for big government. Blah, blah. They were all screaming about that. That's when I first tipped a little bit. And, of course, it took me the next 2 decades to get to where I am today. So I reject that I'm a neocon thing.
Kennedy, I'm sure you've heard it said, if he were alive today, he would be at worst, a moderate Republican.
Yeah. Exactly. And
even his father, the old man, was Kennedy and Nixon had it was a heated rivalry, but they had an affection and a respect for one another. You know, they came from the same generation, and they followed very similar tracks through life, with the exception of the fact that Kennedy came from affluence and Nixon did not.
Mm-hmm.
But at one time, Joe Kennedy, the father, said, if my boy can't make it, which of course he would not have anything other than that,
sure,
he said he would have supported Nixon.
Sure.
So things have changed. Even the conduct of foreign policy used to be said that politics stopped at the water's edge. But that's gone. That too has gone down the tubes.
Yeah, we project our lefty liberal attitudes all around the world. Meanwhile, Islam continues to slaughter Christians, Jews, women, and all over the world. I want to continue this discussion on your conservatism. In your community, I'm talking about the black community, because you hear this a lot in the mainstream media, that, you know, if you're black and you're a conservative, somehow you're an Uncle Tom, that you don't really represent the larger African-American community. And I'm sorry, Stephanie, I reject that term, African-American. First of all,
yeah, me too.
Stephanie, you weren't born in Africa. You weren't born in Africa. You were born, I don't know, wherever you were born here in the United States. You're an American. That's it. But you know where I'm going here. You hear it all the time from other black Americans that oh, you know, if Why are you a conservative? Why are you a member of the Tea Party? What is, you're not standing up for us. You're forgetting your culture or where you come. Take it from here.
Well, number one, I'm not standing up for anybody other than me.
Exactly. Right.
I'm an individual, and I think people should start thinking as individuals and not members of groups, unless it's American in the broader sense of the term. So you're right. I'm not sticking up for anybody other than me and what I think is right. And this is how I live my life. It's conservatism for me is a way of life. Even growing up, it wasn't anything. I don't even think the term conservative was used in the household, because I grew up in a single parent household, and my mother was not. She was aware of the news, but she was not an ideologue, and she was a very practical person. So the things that I espouse now as political philosophy and what's called conservatism, at one time were just living, just people living. There wasn't anything attached to it.
Certainly.
But it's become so partisan now, and things, and so ideological that what was once the lifestyle, what I call, here we go, the incendiary, the Protestant work ethic was the dominant cultural ethos in the country until, I guess, sometime in the 50s and 60s. I don't know when the break happened, but what is considered conservatism now, I think in previous generations was known as the Protestant work ethic, and I think it was pretty much the way of life of the country.
Certainly was. Thank you,
So
Stephanie.
I'm not doing anything different.
No, you just. I thought this was great. I was looking forward to this, and I'm sorry it has taken us so long, and I want you to come back on the show again. I'd love to be on your show, and I'm kind of sticking my foot in your door there, but...
come on over. We're neighbors.
Yeah, sure, why not? Sure, why not? Ladies and gentlemen, Meat and Potato Show from... She writes Massachusetts Matters, and she's the host of Patriot Games and the Daily Hash, which is syndicated on the Red State Talk Radio Network. Stephanie Davis, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on. We're gonna book you again, and I'll feed it through the pipeline, and we'll be in touch on this. Thank you so much, Stephanie.
I appreciate you having me, Chris.
Anytime, Steph. Anytime. I'll get you back on. I'll send you some stuff. I'm going to edit the video, get everything uploaded. I'll send you a copy. You guys do what you guys want. And that's the thing. This gets me back to what I said about, you're on the web, I'm on the web. It's like, just take it. Okay? Don't worry about copyright. Just take it, spread it, do it, send it to whoever, wherever. Because the more people you and I reach, that means more people, you know what I'm saying? It's
Are saved. We're saving them.
Yeah, it's going to snowball down the hill there. Stephanie, thank you so much. Have a good night, kiddo.
I appreciate it.
All right, later.
Bye. Are you there?
No, I'm not there. Sorry, Stephanie. Sorry, I was in the middle of hanging up the phone. Sorry about that. Stephanie, thank you so much for being on the show. That's great. Wow, isn't that amazing? This has been a great day for interviews. This is the second interview I did, two back-to-backs. John Dubay earlier, Stephanie Davis just now. Massachusetts Matters. I'm going to make sure she sends me a link to that blog that she writes, and that'll go all over the Facebook, the Meat and Potatoes, so be looking for that. Patriot Games, Daily Hash, syndicated on the Red State Talk Radio Network, so look that up. I'll have her send me some links on that also, and it'll be out there. And thank you again, Stephanie, for giving me that compliment on my show and what I've been doing. This is what we're all doing. This is what is happening, and you can't stop. You can't stop this movement. This thing is bigger than even I imagined it would be. I thought about a year or so ago, I was having trouble getting the Meat and Potato Show on the air, back online. There were financial things, other personal stuff going on. But I kept at it, kept doing it, and now I'm doing it. And we could use some upgrades. We could use a little more investment. But that's not the point. The point is that that we're doing it. She's doing it. There are thousands, if not millions, of other Americans also doing their own blogs, their own radio, their own interviews. They're all in these liberty movements. Just look at my Meat and Potatoes Facebook stuff that I post all the time. All the links, all the attachments, everything that goes on. There are hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions of all of these, and you can't stop it. Chuck Schumer's wrong. Karl Rove's wrong. It isn't going to stop. It isn't going to stop. And let's just say that, God forbid, knock on wood, God forbid that, let's say we lose this year, and we don't get as many seats, or let's say we get handed our hat. Let's say we overestimated ourselves. That doesn't matter. It doesn't stop the movement. The movement is still going, and it's going to take a long time for this thing to really get to the point where it actually does take over, where you could actually see somebody like me not just doing this internet thing anymore, but possibly being on TV. Of course, I'll probably be an old man at that time, but that's fine. That I can wait. I want to do this bit by bit by bit over time. Just keep doing it, and I guarantee you, everyone who's been on the show and who's helped, and who's come on and has interviewed and has given me a leg up and who has said to me, oh, yeah, I'd like to do an interview, or hey, Chris, why don't you come over here and do this? Every single one of them, I will remember them all, and I will bring as many of them along with me also. Ladies and gentlemen, 2 interviews today, back to back. Stephanie, thank you again. John Dumais, thank you again. God bless everybody. Good night.